It was a long journey, but eventually got back on my feet, thanks mostly to my family. My mum literally nursed me back to care, and my friends. It was a really difficult time for everyone. It was so hard on them to watch me waste away to nothing. I still feel emotional when I think about what they had to cope with, and I definitely think it was easier for me to deal with because I was in it. As I said, I eventually got back on my feet and to a more normal life, but I continued to attend the Mater Hospital in Dublin, and I guess they've dealt with the aftermath of that infection ever since. When you're diabetic, it can be really difficult to manage blood sugars with even as much as a common cold. And I started to find the impact of that infection fairly quickly. And I was diagnosed with kidney failure in 2014. By 2017, I needed to start dialysis, and I chose to do peritoneal dialysis, which is a form of home treatment. There was a definite sense of relief when I was told that day had come. When you have organ failure, and in my case kidney failure, your body is slowly poisoning itself on a day-to-day basis. It's like somebody giving you very small doses of arsenic, not enough to kill you outright, just enough to make you feel like you're dying. I was constantly sick, nausea, vomiting, bowel problems, just really, really unwell. With starting peritoneal dialysis, I began to find the positive impact pretty quickly. While I wasn't perfect, there was days in that first year or so where I genuinely felt okay. Peritoneal dialysis is an amazing treatment option. It gave me a certain level of freedom. I continued to work full time. I maintained a fairly healthy social life, and I stayed relatively active. But as with everything, it has its cons. The treatment itself can become less effective over time. You're responsible for your own infection control, and the dialysis machine itself, which I lovingly named Des, can be fairly noisy, and that's even more relevant when treatment isn't going well and it disrupts your sleep. While this sounds like a tale of woe, it isn't. Living with organ failure is hard, but there is hope. I always felt that while one part of my life wasn't exactly easy, it didn't have to have an impact on every part of my life. There's always joy to be found in life. You just have to accept the hardships and try and make peace with them. And maybe that's easier for me to say because I faced my own mortality, and to me that is finality. In living with kidney failure, I always had the hope of a better, or maybe an easier life. And that's where the importance of organ donation lies. I wouldn't wish to do any of my illness over again, but I wouldn't change it. It's given me far more than it's taken away. When I talk about my transplant journey, I use two words a lot: love and hope. And for me, that's what organ donation stands for. I was blessed through the course of my illness to have my family and friends by my side through it all. When I think about my donor and my organ donor family, it's with an outpouring of love and gratitude from the very depths of my soul. And I can only hope that some of that sentiment reaches their own hearts. And I like to think of my dad and my donor hugging it out in heaven, as I would hope to at some stage. People often ask me how life after transplant compares. And it is nearly impossible to explain how many aspects of my life have changed for the better. I'm able to do things that I haven't had the energy or the interest in for many years. My love of books is back. When I'm out walking my dog Miley, I can run around and play with him. I can take a bath. There's no dialysis anymore. I'm not hooked up to a machine for 8 or 10 hours a night. No diet restrictions, no fluid restrictions, and more amazingly, no insulin. None of this would have been possible without organ donation, my donor and my donor family. I would beg anyone who isn't an organ donor to carry an organ donor card, to have the conversations with your loved ones. Let them know how important it is to you, but more importantly, what it means to someone like me. Death is a tragic thing. We all have to face it. I have and I will again. But if you can leave the legacy of giving someone a life back who otherwise would have lost theirs, then regardless of anything else, that will have been a life well lived.